It would be wrong of me to start this video without acknowledging that yes, I am wearing a massive blue furry hoodie thing. Yes, I am wearing swim goggles, and yes, I am wearing my Indiana Jones hat on top of everything. But it would also be wrong of me to start this video without acknowledging where I'm at right now in Marvel Contest of Champions. I have basically all but quit MCOC. I am currently in-game for one of two things, either Alliance Quest or Alliance War, and I am probably going to be leaving my Alliance at the end of this war season. I know there's a lot of pressure around being in an Alliance right now, but there's really nothing in this game for me. I've tried my best to help and offer feedback. It's very clear that Kabam don't want feedback right now. And, you know, I'll still be around. I want to reserve the right to continue making fun videos. If I have a fun video idea, like I think this video is quite a fun idea, then I want to reserve the right to share it with you. I don't want to make a big I quit video and then have a whole to-do when I come back. You know, I don't want any of that. I will still be around, but it's been 12 days since my last upload. And for those of you who know my channel, that's a very, 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 very long time between uploads. And there's a very good reason for that. There's a whole world out there, guys. I highly recommend you go check it out. Now, I want to spend a little bit of time today talking about the Serpent. Now, what could Matty possibly have to say about the Serpent that hasn't already been said about 100 trillion times? Probably the single most discussed champion ever released ever. Because he is so stupid. But I want to talk about the Serpent today in the context of being the ultimate disease. He is the ultimate consequence of the current champion design philosophy we have right now, where being a defensive and offensive menace, being that dual threat, is so important that eventually you are going to end up with a champion that not only culls their natural counters, cull, pun, I'm joking, but also kills everybody else. And I want to go over exactly why the Serpent is the most insane thing in the world. And I know there are going to be 100 people in the comments saying, oh, because he does this and that, it's so obvious. I know. I want to take you for a journey. I want to take you on a journey through every single line in this guy's kit, because the Serpent is a defender built like no other. If we think about defenders in this game, specifically how defenders are made in this game, typically what happens is they have one shtick, and that's kind of it, right? So Sasquatch, he has one thing. His one thing is being massive. He's big beefy boy, and his whole thing is having a massive health pool, having protection passives, and regenning, right? His whole thing is making the fight last as long as humanly possible, and being the tankiest thing on the planet, right? But apart from that, there really isn't much else going on in his kit, right? There's just that. He's a defender built around being tanky. And then we have Spider-Woman, who is like the complete opposite end of the spectrum. But then we have Spider-Woman, whose whole thing is evade. And you'll notice a common theme throughout these defenders, that if you have a handle on that one mechanic, you're generally good. You're generally good. They elevate that mechanic to the top of its defensive potential, right? They really elevate it to the extreme. But if you have a handle on that mechanic, 8 times out of 10, you're probably okay, right? So Spider-Woman has a plethora of things in her kit. Like, for example, the SB1 triggers power stings through the block. She has Furies that allow her to hit you very, very hard. And both of these things are at their most dangerous when she evades. So she evades and then she hits you and that hurts. Or she evades and then she throws an SB1 through the block and that hurts, right? So essentially, with Sasquatch, if you have a way of cutting through that health pool efficiently with something like Spider-Ham or Spider-Woman, then you're probably okay. With Spider-Woman, if you have a handle on her evade, the rest of her kit is slightly more manageable. Also, we have High Evolutionary. Now, he takes a very simple mechanic, Auto Block, he elevates it to defensive extremes, and if you don't have a good way around that, you're probably not going to have a very good time. But if you do have a way around that, the rest of the kit, the rest of the fight, is a lot more manageable. So we see a common theme occurring, and I could go on, I'm not going to, just for the sake of time, but you can see that the Serpent really doesn't follow this pattern. So how was the Serpent made? Because this holds the secret of why he is the ultimate disease. So the Serpent, his kit is essentially just a checklist. It's essentially not looking at one mechanic and saying, okay, how can we build a defender out of this? It's looking at the entire game and saying, how can we screw you all over in the most efficient way possible? And essentially, what the designer of this champion did, Kabam DLL, is he took a checklist of all the meta options that you may think could nuke or navigate their way around a difficult defender, and systematically checked them off the list. And we're going to go through the Serpent's kit line by line and see how, obviously this is true for many defenders. You can see with many champions or defenders or attackers, they have specific lines in their kit that are pretty pointed to other champions. The Serpent does that better than anybody, right? So with the Serpent's kit, it's more obvious than ever. So that's why I'm doing it on this guy. And let's start right at the beginning, shall we? Let's start with the immunities. And what you really need to do, if you're gonna make the biggest bastard the world has ever seen, is lock down that class wheel. Lock down that class wheel. We don't want any Titanias. We don't want any Magneto behavior. We don't want any silly buggers being played by the tech class. Lock that shit down. Immune to power lock, immune to special lock, immune to heal block. All of these things we think of being unique or common in the tech class, gone. Gone. And apart from that, Serpent only has one other immunity. He's immune to Cold Snap. DLL is very obviously aware of his creations. Night Kate Bishop. We could go all day on how Hercules is Kabam's worst nightmare, and how he's the best champion ever, blah 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 blah. It's been true for about 10 months now, and I'd argue about a year, that the most meta-relevant 6-star, the one that is most worth having, apart from Serpent himself, has been Kate Bishop. For a long, long time. She is so ridiculous, and it's only just become true that I've left her out of my deck for Battlegrounds, which is very, very sad for me. But, you know, 7 stars are the meta, 6 stars have gone out of fashion, them's the breaks. So Night Kate Bishop. He's also reduced the duration of bleed effects by 90%. You want to use Nick Fury? You want to use the Nick Fury second life trick to get around Bullseye and Electro? You want to do the same thing to Serpent? Nope. Nope, not gonna happen. Also, pretty neat way of getting around Archangel, don't you think? Without making him poison immune, just straight up. I actually can't see anything in these goggles. I'm fogging up. I can't see the screen. I think the camera's this way. Is it? I think it's there. Right. Pretty neat way around Archangel as well. Doubles as offensive utility against a node like Biohazard, but without making him bleed or poison immune, they get rid of the nuke himself. Okay, then we have the fear debuff. Now, right up there with Kate Bishop in terms of necessity of getting rid of them offensively is Juggernaut. Juggernaut is dumb. He is right up there with Cull Obsidian, one of the dumbest things ever released as a 7-star, and we just want to make sure that Juggernaut's not going to last past a single special attack, right? The Serpent throws one special attack, Juggernaut's a potato. He can do nothing. He looks like a potato, he acts like a potato, he is a potato. Now, you could go for the SP3 rotation, but I'll let you in on a little secret. You're not killing him in time. You're just not. Rank 4 to rank 6 6-star, it's not happening, okay? You're not killing a Serpent with Juggernaut. But also, it doesn't stop, but it does affect Tigra's damage output. It does mitigate the damage she can deal. I'm having to take this off. It does mitigate the damage she can deal from her Rupture Burst on her SP2 because it does screw with her unblockable charge. Now, Tigra can still do that fight, but it's a lot harder in certain circumstances, and you do need the AI to cooperate with you quite a lot during a perfect Tigra takedown of the Serpent. But yeah, the Fear debuff strikes off the list 2 massive problems from the Mystic class, and then we have his non-magnetic armor. Now, I want to spend a little time foreshadowing the end of this video, because the man himself, DLL, was asked in his comment section, like, why is this a thing? Why have you shut down Magneto? You seem to have shut off half the Western world, so why are we shutting off Magneto as well? And after acting like a complete dick, he did actually provide a proper answer, which can be summarized very succinctly as computer says no. Right? There's really no point dissecting this. It's standard waffle when you want to justify a decision. We ain't having no Magnetos. We ain't having no Magnetos. So, yeah, deal with it, I guess. And then, we have his ability power rate. So that cannot be reduced below 50% by a non-mystic. There are plenty of champions you may think could get around this guy's massive power gain. Champions like Spider-Man 2099, champions like Luke Cage. Nuh-uh. Not happening. You have to deal with this power gain, and this will synergize with the special attacks that we will get to later. Then you have the stun immunity on special attacks when he's awakened, as you've just seen. There are 2 champions in this game with exceptionally powerful lock rotations. One of them is a mystic. And his name is Dr. Doom. No Dr. Doom. Not anymore. He may not be immune to power steal, but the Doom lock? Nah. No Doom lock. And no Silk lock either. That's the other champion. And then we come to his Dread passives. And you can see the champions we've tricked off the list by now. So we have Archangel, we have Kate Bishop, we have the entire tech class, Juggernaut Tigra, Dr. Doom, Spider-Man 2099, Luke Cage, and now we have the Dread passives. Are you ready for a few more? The Harvest from Gallon, Hercules, from his feats of strength, Spider-Ham, Spider-Woman. So anybody who relies on instant damaging effects for damage, night-night, goodbye, nothing you can do. And then you have his immortality. So right now, he's a cosmic champion, and the role of a cosmic disease might be to shut off some of the natural counters. That's been a common theme of the design of defenders. Like, Yelena Belova is a skill champion. You would expect mutants with prowess to do well. Not anymore. Shuts off her natural counters. There are plenty of champions like, for example, Spider-Woman. People who purify debuffs will gain less fighting Spider-Woman. The same thing with Leader, right? You gain less from being able to purify debuffs by the existence of severe debuffs. Serpent does exactly the same thing. He also heavily targets 85% of the Mystic class. You can't nullify it. You can't stagger it. You can't fate seal it. You have to sit through the pain of his immortality while he throws back-to-back specials and gains hella regen with a massive health pool, by the way. And you have to buy the new champions that come out. That's nothing new, but we have arrived at a champion that not only shuts off his natural counters, but because of the massive list of abilities I just said, shuts off everybody else. And it's as a result of this special design where they haven't said, alright, let's elevate a certain mechanic to the extreme. They've just said, screw you all. They've just said, screw you all. We're shutting you all off for reasons known only to ourselves. Right. And then, if somehow, your champion has not been scratched off the list by any of the, it seems like, endless amounts of mechanics I've just mentioned, if your champion has survived all of that, then you have 3 more mechanics just to make sure your life is hell on earth. Just to make sure that everybody, apart from the specific counters we will sell you, is done. Done. We need to make sure the Serpent doesn't die. We need to make sure that just general damage dealers who somehow get around the plethora of abilities that I've already mentioned get screwed over as well. And that comes in the form of his resist up. So his resist up massively prolongs the fight. DLL said in his champion deep dive of context, it's a good thing that this guy doesn't have a massive health pool, otherwise he'd probably be busted. A, he has a bigger health pool than Mr. Sinister, and that's quite chunky. And B, what on earth is this resist up? What on earth is this resist up? When the Serpent rebalance didn't happen, I identified that resist up as a dark horse. I identified that resist up as one of the most problematic abilities on his entire kit, because it just rules out everybody who relies on punching him. And even then, even direct damaging status effects have their potency tuned down. So just in case your damage loop has not been screwed over by everything else that targets specific meta champions, now we have the general safety net. Now we have that general safety net to really lock this guy down, and even if you have a way around that, I bet you don't have a way around undexable specials. With the added potency of a Pierce passive. Isn't that just wonderful? And there you have it, folks. You have the worst thing to ever exist. You have the ultimate disease. Thank you for joining me on this journey, because I have just been listing abilities for 15 minutes now, and I had a longer version of this video lined up where I had more footage, and I kept glancing over to the footage, and I was actually running out of time. I wanted to talk about more, but I guess I'll end on this. I do want to talk a little bit about Kabam DLL, because if I were in charge of employee conduct at Kabam, I would be clamping down on this man's behaviour a little bit more. The way he responds to people who are genuinely curious, or asking questions, or even just disagree with him, is slightly, more than slightly, problematic. It's not a good look. It's not a good look, especially from one of your headline designers. But hey, look, there's a lot of stuff going around about DLL right now. Is Nico going to get nerfed? Is there some sort of favoritism? And hey, I'm sure we'd all love to live in a movie. I personally don't like the way this guy acts, or what he says, but, you know, we don't live in a movie. Will Nico get nerfed? Probably. If she doesn't, big deal. Game's screwed anyway. And anyway, regardless of how they built the Serpent, we all know why. The reason they built the Serpent the way they did was to open up design space.